Hi there, welcome to Robby Reviews. I, of course, am Robby, and this is why you should listen to Sola by Intercessor. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is my second album review ever, and I hope to keep making these for, as long as I want to make them. So let's just go ahead and hop right in. So the album is called Sola and the band is Intercessor. I don't actually remember how I heard about this band. I think I found them through like an Instagram ad or something like that. By the way, I'm super glad that I did. Sola is their first album, their debut album ever, and it's more like an extended EP. Honestly, it's 7 songs, and I'm not sure what the rule is, like when it becomes like too short that it's an EP and too long that it's an album. It's like in that weird middle stage. So I don't know. I'm just calling it an album, so we're gonna roll with it. But they've got like a progressive metalcore, like gent sound going on. But the cool thing about this album is that it was done entirely independent. So they recorded it, produced it, mixed, and distributed it all independently. These guys are really talented and they work super hard, and I'm super glad to be kind of supporting them in this way. So obviously I like this album. I don't recommend, feature, or review any albums or music that I don't like, that I wouldn't listen to personally, and I would absolutely listen to this album. In fact, I have multiple times. Right off the bat, something that I really like about this album is that you can actually hear the bass in the mix. I know maybe it's a tiny thing for some of you people, but as a bass player, I love that you can actually hear the bass. It just makes the entire mix, makes the whole sound fuller, sound more dynamic. A lot of the time, a lot of metalcore outfits just kind of drown out the bass and guitar, and I don't know, they put some kind of synth in below or whatever. But it's just so nice to actually hear the bass come through. And it's not all the time, but when it does, it creates such a different dynamic and a feel to the songs. And I'm so glad that they did that they left room for the bass. Also, another great thing about this album are the instrumentals. The first song, Doxology, is actually, I think, an instrumental take on a hymn that I actually really like. But it's just beautiful. It's almost haunting in a way, but it's really well done. It's got these rain and thunder sounds going on in it that are just gorgeous, and this really beautiful guitar lead line, and it's a different way of starting an album than, like your typical like fast, heavy opener that you normally get. Also, the track Providence is another instrumental. It's like right in the middle of the album, and it's kind of a nice break actually in between the rest of the songs. It's not kind of light and ambient like Doxology is. It's actually pretty driving and heavy, but it's kind of this sweet, it's in like the sweet spot of the album, and I like how it breaks it up. I think that was a good choice to put it there. And then also in the final song, Gloria, there's this instrumental right in the middle of the track. It's got like I think it's an organ maybe in there, something like that, and these monk-like chants or choir, and just that alone, the change of dynamics throughout the album might just make it my favorite song. So the whole album just has really solid, gent-like riffs. Musically speaking, there's nothing wrong with this. The drums, from the drums to the vocals, the production, the musicianship, everything is spot on. The drums, they're more on the less complicated side, I would say. I mean, they're still fast, they're still pumping and rhythmic, but they're not too super flashy, and I think that's because they really wanted the vocals and the message of the music to shine through. The vocalist does a great job. He's mostly like mid-screams. He's got some highs and lows as well to kind of differentiate it sometimes, which actually I wish he did more, because his lows and his highs are really solid. But the reason why I really wanted to talk about this album, like all the others, is the message behind the words. So Sola is actually a concept album built around the 5 solas, which are like the 5 kind of defining features that the Protestant church used when it broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, hundreds of years ago. So sola is the Latin word for only, and it's meant to be paired with the titles of the other tracks. So not Doxology or Providence, but Fide or Fide. I don't know how you say that name, but Gratia, Christus Scriptura, and Gloria. So like sola fide or sola fide, sola gratia, solo Christus, and pretty much they all translate into only faith, only grace, only Christ, and so on and so forth. And I think it's this really interesting concept because the way that they write is so interesting. They have amazing word choice throughout their songs, I highly recommend that you actually look up their lyrics, because just the meaning and the words that they use are so interesting and so carefully chosen. I was very impressed with that. And kind of the cool thing about this album is the way that it plays out. A lot of the time, this kind of stuff can sound really preachy, but this doesn't. In fact, it kind of brings you on this journey with the person, or more like a process. So the process kind of starts in the second song, after the nice opening of doxology. It starts with the song fide, whatever, and the first words of the song are, "Help my unbelief." So obviously right off the bat, there's a cry for help. The person is in a dark place, they need help. Either their faith isn't working for them, they don't have enough faith, or they're searching for faith in something. You're kind of put in the place like, okay, something's happening, something needs to change. The switch in the story comes in the song Gratia, which means grace, in Latin, obviously. And it comes in the lines, "By grace alone we exist in this moment." So it's at this moment that the character suddenly realizes their shift goes from the problem, from "help my unbelief," from their unbelief, to grace. So it's like their eyes are lifted from the dark circumstance that they're in to suddenly to grace, to God, if you will. Suddenly their eye is on the helper instead of their need. As if the character has suddenly realized just how much they need grace and how much grace they have been given in that moment to actually live and exist and survive, more than just try and struggle through. So really this track is the turning point, and then it all kind of concludes in the track Gloria. And this track is interesting. It's different because instead of being from the character's point of view, it's from God's point of view. So the album and the track ends on the lines, "Existence stands under my command." So ultimately, God in the album has the last word. So it's this kind of cool little journey where the character is struggling, they need help, they have this shift in their mentality where finally they're looking up towards grace, towards God, and now God is speaking back to the person, saying that, like, I've got this, I am the maker, my sovereignty is taking care of this. And I think it's just a really interesting concept, and just the way that it is explained and laid out. Obviously, I did like a very basic version, but it's very interesting and super creative, and it's obviously Christian beliefs that are in this, right? But I think the way that it's presented, the way that it's written, just the music itself, that anybody can really enjoy it. So of course, I highly recommend this album. I liked it, and I hope that Intercessor goes on to create more music. I hope that they keep refining their sound and just going from level to level, because I think that this debut was super strong, and I can't wait to see what else they have in the future. So below I'll have a link to Sola where you can listen to it, as well as anything else on Intercessor, whatever, like merch and whatnot. I also have links to Robby Reviews down below, whether you want to follow me on Instagram, check out my playlists, whatever. But with that, I really appreciate you watching this album review with me, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Later.